Okay, so now we're a little tour of our inventory cabinet over here. I want to talk about a few fittings and what they are and some of the differences and similarities. First one I'm going to grab here, you notice that it's a little bit golden color. This is going to be a brass or a bronze fitting. And also too, you can notice these rough edges around here. So I know this is a cast piece. Now, what's the difference in the significance? Well, I'm going to grab another piece of similar color material. And you notice that it doesn't have the same roughness around there. So this right here is a machine fitting, okay? And this one right here is a cast fitting. Now once it's cast, most of the items are machined, but not all of the things are machined. So again, just to understand the differences, and I know this is brass and this is likely actual cast bronze. Now, getting back to what this is and what it does, this bushing right here can come in many different sizes in here and many different sizes out here. And what it's essentially to do is you have one pipe size here and then the next size pipe up here. There could be multiple jumps with these, but it's important for how to put some circuits together if you need to go from one pipe size to another. Now, having said that, the next thing I'm going to talk about here is a reducer coupling. This one here, it goes from a larger pipe down to a smaller one, and it is female, both female sides here. The other thing you'll notice is that it's a kind of grayish in color. This one here is actually a galvanized steel, so it's cast steel that is galvanized, and it happens to have in the casting out here 1/2 and 3/4, so we know this is 1/2 inch pipe size to 3/4. Moving on, we have a cross. Obviously, if you want to bring pipe, and pipe, all of the same size you have here. They do have these in, 3/4, 3/4, 1/2. They have in many different configurations depending on what your needs are. So we have here a standard elbow, and this is going to be 90 degrees, and then the other standard we have is a 45 degree. Okay, and again, these come in all different sizes, and they also come in different materials. These happen to be galvanized. Okay, back with our elbows here. We're also going to talk about, along with the crosses, there are also T's. Okay, so this only accepts 3. This accepts 4. And we also have the 90 degree reducing elbow. So not only is it an elbow, but is reducing because it goes from one pipe size down to another. Here we have what's called a union. A union is a great fitting because what it allows you to do is kind of have a break in your system, and I'll talk about that in a second. Most of the fittings for rigid pipe are going to be threaded on the end, and so as you're threading an elbow into another elbow and so on and so forth, you may find that, hey, if I want to pull this section apart, I'm going to have to pull the whole thing apart. But how you can fix that is you screw this on one end of the pipe, screw this on the other end of the pipe, and then even though those are fastened, this can go together. This ring spins independently of the back piece here, so you can actually connect or disconnect a pipe section without actually removing the fittings from the actual pipe itself. You're just actually separating this fitting. This is still attached and this is still attached. A union, great device. Okay, one other thing is we have what's called a street elbow, and that's female into male. Okay, that happens in multiple sizes. And we also have a few other things. We have a plug valve here. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of each individual one of these devices, but I do want to get into this. This right here is the first valve we'll talk about. This is a ball valve. This is my favorite. Not necessarily the cheapest, but you can see as you turn this knob, which actually it's got a safety on it, as you turn this knob, there is literally, it's turning a ball, and the ball has a hole in it, and in one position it closes off the port, and in the other position it opens it up. So that's one style of valve there that we're going to be working with on a regular basis. And then of course you have another one which is a gate valve, and essentially as you turn this handle, and it's going to essentially descend a gate across that whole port and close that off. So that is how to adjust water flow. Now, a few other fittings that we'll talk about very quickly is we have barbed to threaded. This is great for if you have any kind of plumbing that has threading on it, but then you want to go to tubing. When we talk about tubing, we're talking about this type of tubing here. It's flexible rubber tubing. We're also talking about vinyl tubing. We'll have examples later, but this would go on here, and then typically there would be a clamp, and then you can thread this onto your other plumbing. Now, if you just want to go from hose to hose, you can do that with any kind of a barbed device. Here we have a barbed connector, And then here we have a barbed T, so if we need to add something else into our circuit. All right, so those are the basics, and that's not an exhaustive list. There's obviously so much more out there, but I just wanted to talk about a few fittings that you're going to come in contact with, and then after you come in contact with those and use them for a bit, you'll understand, oh, the operating principle really repeats. A few other things, though. It is not uncommon to see fittings out of PVC as well. This right here is a gray PVC, very thick. The reason it looks thick is because it's actually Schedule 80. This is the first time I'm talking about schedules, but when it comes to pipe, the most common, Schedule 40, and then there is Schedule 20, and there's Schedule 80, and that has to do with the thickness. Okay, so this particular material here is a Schedule 80, that's why it looks really thick compared to the probably white Schedule 40 that you've seen in the past. Typically, you are going to glue these things together, especially the Schedule 40 when it comes to the PVC, but you can also have threaded items, especially with the Schedule 80 because it's much thicker, you have the thicker walls, you can screw things together, it has more structural integrity, so you can see that. I'm going to say this, and it may be not necessarily everybody else's experience, but generally you're going to find the PVC a little on the side of residential. Not always. There's going to be some places for industrial PVC, but typically you're going to find this in households along with other types of new materials that they use nowadays, which is PEX and things of that nature. But generally when it comes to industrial things, we think of like the steels, the coppers, the galvanized, thicker materials, not so much PVC, but it is definitely used in here. Okay, so now that you've seen a little bit about our supply area over here, you'll kind of get an idea of some of the fittings that you're going to use, and then next we're going to talk a little bit about how these fittings go together and how to actually estimate the amount of length that you need, especially when these two things go together. They start out at one length, and then you're going to screw them together. How do we figure that out so that we can get the appropriate distance on our component?